In Brazil, the death toll resulting from heavy rains and landslides in Petropolis rose to 152. The mission of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Bolivia visited on Saturday the former de facto president Janine Añez, who is currently detained in the Miraflores prison in the city of La Paz. Reports of new attacks and shelling in the Democratic People's Republic of Donetsk Friday night and all Saturday fueled the warnings of a potential Ukrainian invasion in the eastern separatist territories. Hi, this is From the South. I'm your news anchor, Dio Martin, from the teleSUR studios in Havana. We begin with the news. In Brazil, the death toll from the downpour and mudslides in Petropolis rose in the last hours, while rescue efforts are still in motion as teams search for people trapped alive under the debris. Authorities confirm 152 deaths so far, among them 26 children. For the fifth consecutive day, with weather conditions actually working in favor of the salvaging tasks, rescuers dig through the rubble looking for bodies or possible survivors. The 213 people reported missing, authorities have warned that there is little hope of finding victims alive amid the devastation caused by Tuesday's torrential rains. Officials confirmed they've managed to rescue 24 people alive, a feat that transpired during the first hours and that has not been repeated in the last few days. Meteorologists state that during the storm, in only 6 hours, more water fell than that which was expected for the whole month of February. And the neighbors report that in spite of the weather warnings, the government did not carry out operations to evacuate the areas at risk. Forest fires in Corrientes, Argentina are still raising alarms. International aid and occasional rains are assisting the firefighters against the flames. Argentine ambassador in Brazil, Daniel Scioli, confirmed the arrival of firefighters from the Brazilian state Rio Grande do Sul, who will help the others responders to contain the blaze in the municipality of Santo Tomé, the location in Corrientes most affected by the fires. According to figures from the Institute of Agricultural Technology of Argentina, the blaze has covered 7,850 square kilometers. Meanwhile, as the disaster teams work to put out the flames, citizens reported in social networks that on Sunday morning it rained in Corrientes province, which helped the emergency crews fight the fires. On Saturday, President of Peru, Pedro Castillo, stated that he has no intention of shutting down the Congress, which has an opposition majority, or remaining in power after 2026 when his term expires. The dignitary stated this in an interview for a Spanish-speaking media outlet in which he provided details after a week of tension with the legislature, in which Castillo, as head of state, in a message addressed to the members of Congress, asked to turn the page regarding inter-party disputes and to think about the country and the people who are most in need. Castillo assured that shutting down Parliament has never been on his mind. The Peruvian president accused an ultra-conservative sector of the Congress headed by its chair, Maria del Carmen Alba, of conspiring to remove him from office. Castillo reinstated that in the Peruvian Parliament there is a sector that does not look out for the benefit of the country and has only purely political answers. There's been a development in the case of former President of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, as the Attorney General's office reported that it is investigating the existence or lack of evidence regarding the pending complaints against him. Now, this was requested by the natural judge Edwin Ortiz based on Article 6 of the bilateral extradition treaty between the United States and the Central American nation, which establishes that if the requested person faces ongoing processes in the territory of origin, he or she must first clarify his or her legal situation. According to official data, most of the Honduran citizens accused and requested by the States serve trials and sentences in the North American territory. Experts affirm that the handing over of the ex-head of state is inevitable. Hernandez is accused, among other charges, of conspiracy to import a controlled substance and of use or carrying of firearms such as machine guns and destructive devices. Juan Orlando Hernandez was also charged with the introduction of 500 tons of cocaine into the United States. In Brazil, workers keep struggling for their daily support, while the government, who is responsible for advancing society, does nothing but decimate labor laws. Yet private drives look for alternatives in Araraquara City. Our correspondent Brian Meyer from Brazil brings us a story.
After the 2016 coup, the Brazilian government decimated labor laws. Today, 1.4 million Brazilian workers have no labor rights at all as autonomous drivers for apps like Uber. But in Araraquara, a city 200 miles from São Paulo, a group of drivers have set up a cooperative and created their own ride app.
Araraquara has an institutional policy of solidarity economy. Without it, it will be hard to implement a program like this. Here, instead of capital exploiting people, the people exploit capital. Cooperativism is present in the daily lives of the people.
With technical support from the Workers' Party city government, the app, called Bibi Mobi, rolled out on January 1st, 2022 and already has 400 drivers and 11,000 registered users.
Since the cooperative is not designed to make a profit, it charges a small fee to maintain the app and passes the rest of the money to the drivers.
Unlike on commercial platforms, cooperative workers using the Bibi Mobi platform don't have to spend a large portion of their workday earning profits for faceless foreign corporations.
A 4-kilometer ride costs 10 reais. If I take a passenger using the most popular ride platform, I'll get around 6 reais. If I drive the same distance from Bibi Mob, I get 9 reais and 50 cents.
By taking control of the means of production and eliminating predatory corporate profit, the drivers are beginning to get their lives back.
Now I can work normal hours. I hit my goal a lot earlier in the day and this reduces stress. I used to work 15 hours a day and with the new app, I've been averaging around 8 hours a day.
Brian Mir, teleSUR, Araraquara.
We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The mission in Bolivia of the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights visited this Saturday the former de facto President Janine Añez, who is currently detained in the Miraflores prison in the city of La Paz. There they noted that the government has respected her decision as a legitimate exercise of her right to protest. Now, the mission also informed on its Twitter account on the social network that it was verified that authorities have not provided forced feeding or treatment. It also reiterated that it will continue working to ensure that the state continues to guarantee the rights of all persons deprived of their freedom, safeguarding their physical and psychological integrity. The former de facto president, accused of the 2019 coup d'etat, began a hunger strike on February 9th. Since then, relatives and friends have denounced irregularities against her that they have not been able to prove. Now, former commanders of the Bolivian Air Force and Navy were sentenced to 3 years in prison. Gonzalo Terceras and Palmiro Harjuri, former members of the military high command, pleaded guilty for their participation in the 2019 coup d'etat. The former military chiefs were found guilty of failure to fulfill their duties, committing crimes, as well as unlawful and unconstitutional resolutions. Both ex-military officers who had been detained since the mid of 2021 are 2 of the 8 former military and police chiefs accused, along with de facto President Janine Añez, for the crimes committed during the coup d'etat against former President Evo Morales in 2019, as well as violent repression that led to the Sincata and Sacaba massacres. Haitian citizens crossed the border gate between Haiti and the Dominican Republic ahead of the beginning of the construction of a perimeter fence between the two countries, as announced less than a year ago by Dominican President Luis Abinader. Less than a year after Dominican President Luis Abinader announced the construction of a dividing fence between the Dominican Republic and Haiti, the project of the so-called intelligent border fence emerged after the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse by mercenaries. The first stage is designed to integrate a physical fence with lighting system, command center control, and motion sensors. Haiti and the Dominican Republic share a 380-kilometer border through which a huge irregular flow of Haitian immigrants pass in search of better jobs, mainly in tourism or manufacturing. In Canada, Ottawa police authorities announced that they will impose financial fines and criminal charges on citizens who support protests against a mandatory health pass. Acting Police Chief Steve Bell ordered the deployment of police officers throughout the center of the country to prevent more protesters from approaching government buildings, including Parliament Hill and the Senate, as they try to put an end to the occupation of downtown streets. He also said that only those with legal grounds, such as residents, businesses, and others with legal grounds, will be allowed to enter the area. In addition, police authorities warned that they will continue to work to actively identify and punish any person involved in the so-called Freedom Convoy. China recently adopted a new anti-COVID method called sequential immunization, which means mixing different types of vaccines to boost people's immune system against COVID-19. Instead of receiving the same immunity booster shot, which has been practiced in the country since October, vaccinated people can opt to receive either a recombinant COVID-19 protein vaccine or an adenovirus vector vaccine. The primary vaccine we use is primarily an inactivated vaccine, and for the booster vaccine, we can not only use the inactivated vaccine but also different technical lines, adenovirus vector vaccine and recombinant protein vaccine, said Xiao, adding that the approach is safe and effective according to domestic and foreign studies, so it can provide a new way to build our existing immune barriers, and we can have a stronger and longer-lasting immune effect against COVID-19. The Beijing Winter Olympics ended on Sunday with an uplifting closing ceremony, declaring the Games closed and handing over to 2026 host Milano Cortina. International Olympic Committee President Thomas Bach hailed an unforgettable Olympic experience.
The unifying power of the Olympic Games is stronger than the forces that want to divide us. You give peace a chance. May the political leaders around the world be inspired by your example of solidarity and peace. You not only respected each other, you supported each other, you embraced each other, even if your countries are divided by conflict. You overcame these divisions, demonstrating that in this Olympic community we are all equal.
An Italian flag ferry continues to burn on for a third day off Corfu Island in Greece after a fire broke out on Thursday night while the ferry was en route to Italy. The Greek Coast Guard said that firefighters who were battling a blaze on a ferry sailing from Greece to Italy discovered a survivor on the stern of the still burning vessel on Sunday, reviving hopes that other missing passengers could still be found alive. Rescuers managed to take at least 281 out of 292 passengers and crew to safety after the blaze broke out on the Italian-flagged Euro ferry Olympia early on Friday, but 11 people are still missing, according to the Coast Guard and ferry operator. There's more news coming up after a final short break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine informed on Saturday about the arrival of a second shipment of military aid from Canada, which arrived at the international airport of Petropolis under the technical agreement between the Department of National Defense and the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and the Armed Forces of Canada. Now, Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Radoslav Zemlinsky indicated in a statement that Ukraine intends to strengthen cooperation with Canada as a response to a technical agreement, and as a result, Canadian instructors are also conducting tactical exercises hand-in-hand with Ukrainian military personnel as part of their efforts to dispel Russia's alleged aggression. To date, this is Canada's second shipment. The first plane with military assistance aimed at Kiev arrived in the country on February 4th, and according to the ministry, several flights are scheduled for the future. Belarus and Russia extended joint military maneuvers. Belarusian President and Defense Minister Viktor Yanunin announced today the extension of military maneuvers with Russia due to the increase of tensions on the border and increase of the conflict in the east of Ukraine. In view of the growing military activity near the external borders of the Union state of Russia and Belarus, the escalation of the situation in Añez, presidents of Belarus and Russia have decided to extend the inspection of Allied response forces. For Yanunin, there is a strong smell of gunpowder in Europe, and it is being deliberately pushed towards war. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron expressed their support for finding a ceasefire on the front line between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian militias in the Donbass region following recent clashes in the area. Russia and France agreed to seek an immediate solution to the situation when the United States continues with its narrative of an alleged Russian invasion on Ukrainian territory. Both leaders agreed on the need to organize a meeting of the Trilateral Contact Group, meaning Ukraine, the Russian Federation, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, on Ukraine in the coming hours. According to President Putin's spokesman Dmitry Peskov, tensions in the line of contact with Donbass have peaked, and any spark, any unplanned incident, or any small planned provocation can lead to irreparable consequences.
République centrafricaine avec des exactions terribles contre les populations civiles. Et ils arrivent au Mali avec...
German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock advised against assumptions of war with misleading information. At the end of a G7 meeting, Germany's foreign minister warns against trying to guess or assume Russia's decisions on Ukraine. U.S. President Joe Biden had said a day earlier that he was convinced Russian President Vladimir Putin had made the decision to attack Ukraine, sending fears soaring that a major conflict could break out in Europe. Baerbock made her remarks after hosting a foreign ministers' meeting on the fringes of the Munich gathering, which has been dominated by the Ukraine crisis this year.
In crisis situations, the most inappropriate thing to do is somehow guess or assume. So we need to be careful not to fall victim to targeted disinformation. That is why it is so important to look closely at the evidence.
Pope Francis refers to the Russian-Ukraine conflict and natural disasters in Madagascar and Brazil. At the Vatican, Pope Francis made a clear reference to the tensions between Russia and Ukraine, as he pointed out that it is sad when people who are proud to be Christians see others as enemies and think of waging war against each other. He has talked about the crisis in recent weeks, praying on several occasions for a peaceful political solution to the tensions. Speaking from his study window in the Apostolic Palace, the Pope also expressed his closeness to the people affected in recent days by devastating natural disasters, particularly in Madagascar, which was hit by 3 cyclones, and in the Brazilian city of Petropolis, where there were floods and mudslides. The reconciliation process established by the Syrian government consolidates and remains on track. Now, this Saturday in the city of Deir ez-Zor, around 900 people joined the reconciliation to leave the armed conflict behind. In previous days, dozens of people had regularized their legal status in the city despite the difficulties imposed by the pro-American militia, previously surrendering their weapons. The comprehensive reconciliation process aims to restore the legal status of fugitives and military fugitives who wish to return to the Syrian Arab Army in Deir ez-Zor. Almost 1,000 Palestinians threatened with eviction in Jerusalem. Almost 220 Palestinian families, numbering 970 people, are today threatened with eviction from their homes in East Jerusalem by Israeli authorities. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs indicated in a communique that most of them live in the Sheikh Jarrah and Silwan neighborhoods of Jerusalem. As an example, they mentioned a case of the Salam family composed of 12 members, 6 of them children, who will have to leave their home of 7 decades next month by order of the occupation forces. OCHA recalled that the United Nations called repeatedly for a halt to forced evictions and demolitions in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem. The legal and political battle over the case became symbolic over the future of that part of the city, which Palestinians claim as the capital of their future state, a position supported by most countries. The Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, one of the most expensive projects in the recent history of the African country and undoubtedly the focus of many regional tensions, became fully operational. After a ceremony by Ethiopia's Premier Abiy Ahmed, the dam began generating electricity. The project and its startup have already provoked some reactions in Sudan and Egypt, where they consider that it is taking away the Blue Nile's resources. In January 2020, the 3 governments reached an initial agreement on the major points of dispute on the construction of the dam and committed to signing a final document in February, but Addis Ababa abandoned the talks before signing it. This Sunday, the dam started to generate the first production of 375 megawatts of hydroelectric power, thanks to 13.9 million cubic meters of water accumulated during the second filling phase. The dam is expected to eventually produce about 5,000 megawatts of electricity. come to the end of this news brief, but remember you can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. You can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Dio Martin. Thanks for watching.